Empress Wu Zetian, the only female emperor in the vast and storied history of China, remains one of history's most enigmatic, controversial, and feared rulers. Her journey from a low-ranking concubine to the supreme leader of the Tang dynasty is as chilling as it is extraordinary. Though her rule is often remembered for its bloodshed, cruelty, and the construction of a surveillance state, it is also marked by political competence, administrative reform, and a challenge to the deeply entrenched patriarchy of ancient China. Her legacy is a paradox. A ruler whose reign was soaked in blood, but who also ushered in a period of prosperity and cultural flourish. Wu Zetian was born in 624 AD during the Tang dynasty into a relatively affluent family. Her father, Wu Shihuo, was a chancellor under Emperor Taizong, which allowed Wu to receive a rare education for a woman at the time. She studied literature, music, and history, becoming known for her intelligence and ambition. At the age of 14, she entered the imperial court as a concubine of Emperor Taizong. She was given the title of Karen, one of the lower ranks of imperial concubines. Despite her intellect, she found little opportunity to exert influence during Taizong's reign. However, her fortunes would shift dramatically after the emperor's death. Upon Emperor Taizong's death in 649, all of his concubines were expected to retire to a Buddhist nunnery. Wu followed suit, but refused to fade into obscurity. She began a clandestine affair with Taizong's son and successor, Emperor Gaozong. Against all conventions, Gaozong defied tradition and brought Wu back to court, making her a concubine once more. Wu wasted no time securing her position. She gave birth to a daughter, and, in a ruthless move that shocked even the most jaded courtiers, allegedly strangled the infant with her own hands. She then accused Gaozong's reigning empress, Empress Wang, of the crime. This calculated act paved the way for her rise. Empress Wang and her chief rival, Consort Xiao, were both deposed and brutally executed under Wu's orders. The two women were mutilated and drowned in wine vats, a punishment so horrific it became the stuff of court legend. Wu's grip on power tightened as she maneuvered her way into the position of empress in 655 AD. Though Gaozong remained the official ruler, Wu was the true power behind the throne, acting as regent and making all significant decisions. Once in control, Wu Zetian began consolidating power with a ruthlessness rarely seen before. She built a vast network of informants and spies, including the notorious secret police known as the Cruel Officials. These enforcers operated with impunity, empowered to arrest, torture, and execute anyone suspected of disloyalty. Bronze boxes were installed throughout the empire for anonymous accusations, transforming society into a pit of paranoia. And no noble, servant, or peasant could be denounced without evidence, often leading to grisly deaths. Wu didn't even spare her own family. Stepchildren, in-laws, and distant relatives were either exiled, forced to commit suicide, or executed under fabricated charges of treason. Wu's reign of terror was marked by inventive and horrifying methods of execution. Victims were not merely killed, they were made examples of. Her infamous torture methods included the human swine treatment, in which victims had their limbs, eyes, ears, and tongues removed before being thrown into pigsties to die in agony. She commissioned execution arenas where prisoners were fed to wild animals, wolves, tigers, bears, and dogs specifically trained to prolong suffering. These events often occurred during imperial banquets, turning death into a form of public spectacle and reinforcing Wu's terrifying dominance over her subjects. Despite the brutality, Wu Zetian was an astute and effective ruler. She restructured the bureaucratic system to prioritize talent over aristocratic lineage, introducing the imperial examination system, which allowed commoners of skill to rise through the ranks. She promoted Buddhism over Confucianism, as the latter emphasized male dominance and hierarchy. Temples and statues were built in her image, proclaiming her divine right to rule. She presented herself as the reincarnation of Maitreya, the future Buddha, blending religious symbolism with political propaganda to secure her authority. Her reign was not without cultural and economic achievements. Under Wu's rule, agriculture thrived, trade expanded, and the empire's borders stabilized. She initiated massive public works, improved education, and supported literature and the arts. In spite of the terror she wielded, many of her policies had lasting benefits, particularly in creating a more meritocratic government. Her court saw a higher participation of women in positions of influence, and she remained deeply involved in the day-to-day administration of the state, often rising before dawn to read reports and issue decrees. As she aged, Wu's rule became increasingly erratic. Believing herself divine, she indulged in bizarre rituals and surrounded herself with sorcerers, fortune-tellers, and alchemists. Her obsession with immortality led her to ingest mercury-based elixirs that slowly poisoned her, deteriorating both her mind and body. Her skin turned ashen, her hair fell out, and her moods became unstable. She took on numerous young lovers, whom she would later execute in the belief that their youthful essence could be absorbed in death. Ministers who had served her loyally for decades were arbitrarily accused of treason and executed. In her final years, Wu's court became a theater of paranoia. Nobles and officials whispered in fear, always uncertain if they would return home at the end of the day. Some wrote farewell letters to their families each morning, while others developed nervous tics and psychological afflictions. Even her infamous secret police lived in fear of being accused, as Wu had established multiple intelligence agencies that spied on each other, ensuring no one ever felt truly safe. By 705 AD, the court had had enough. A coup was quietly organized by her own ministers and family members. Too weak from mercury poisoning and lost in delusion to resist, Wu was deposed in a swift, bloodless palace revolt. She died shortly afterward, marking the end of one of the most extraordinary reigns in Chinese history. Wu Zetian remains a complex figure, a woman who shattered the glass ceiling of imperial China but left a trail of corpses in her wake. Her story is a testament to the corrupting influence of power and the lengths to which one might go to attain and maintain it. Whether seen as a feminist icon or a brutal despot, Wu's reign changed the course of Chinese history forever, leaving behind a legacy as haunting as it is fascinating. Long after her death, the debate over Wu Zetian's true nature continued to rage. Historians, scholars, and novelists found themselves torn between admiration for her political genius and revulsion at her methods. Yet even those who condemned her could not deny her impact. She redefined the possibilities for women in power, albeit through means that many considered unforgivable. Her life story became the subject of countless plays, poems, and historical records, some painting her as a tragic anti-heroine, others as a monstrous tyrant. Modern assessments of Wu Zetian have become more nuanced. Feminist scholars and historians have attempted to peel away the layers of misogynistic interpretation that may have exaggerated her cruelty while minimizing her accomplishments. They argue that many male rulers committed equal or greater atrocities without suffering the same infamy. Under their scrutiny, Wu begins to resemble less a villain and more a reflection of her time, more ruthless, yes, but also capable, intelligent, and visionary. Even in contemporary China, her name evokes both pride and unease. Statues and shrines to her still exist, though often placed discreetly. Her tomb, known as the Qianling Mausoleum, remains one of the most enigmatic imperial resting places, with an unmarked stele that speaks volumes. It is said that she left it blank deliberately, trusting history to write its own verdict on her reign. That decision has invited centuries of interpretation, debate, and fascination. Wu Zetian's impact also rippled far beyond the borders of China. Her court attracted scholars, merchants, and emissaries from Persia, India, and Byzantium, turning her capital into a cosmopolitan hub of ideas and culture. The infrastructure projects she launched helped integrate distant regions of her empire, fostering internal unity and facilitating trade. Her support for Buddhism had lasting religious consequences, influencing the spread and development of the faith throughout East Asia. As a strategist, she was unmatched. Wu mastered the art of manipulating court factions, turning enemies into allies and allies into tools. She understood the psychology of fear and wielded it with surgical precision, but she also understood the value of legitimacy and public works in maintaining the mandate of heaven. In her, contradictions collided. A devout Buddhist who sanctioned torture, a visionary reformer who ruled through terror, a woman who rose by destroying others but who opened doors for future generations. Her ghost haunts the annals of Chinese history, neither wholly benevolent nor entirely malevolent. In her triumphs and her atrocities, she stands alone an empress above emperors, a paradox forged in blood and ambition. Through the centuries, Wu Zetian's life continues to challenge the narratives we tell about power, gender, and legacy. In the shifting mirror of history, she remains one of its most enduring and provocative reflections.